Welcome to another Montague Miller moment. And we've got one of our very experienced agents with us today. Cynthia Viejo has been in the business
Since 1980, 31 years.
31 years. So you have seen a lot of markets, seen a lot of fluctuations. I remember in 1980, I wasn't in the business then. Weren't interest rates like
19%.
19%. And now in the last year we've had, of course, the lowest historically that anybody can remember. But tell me a little bit about how you think this market is different, unique. How's this market different?
Well, when interest rates were 19%, if you want to call it an enemy per se of the American dream, of trying to achieve the American dream, at least that was a tangible. Interest rates are 19%. It directly impacts your borrowing power. So of course in those days we definitely had to think outside the box in coming up with creative ideas to help people to buy a home that would meet their needs, which it's a whole nother story if we had more time to talk about that. So, but it gave me a strong foundation to work from, thinking creatively outside the box. Today, record low interest rates, unbelievably low prices, and people are definitely out there wanting to buy property and are out there looking at. I'm seeing it's getting more and more encouraging in this area, but still it's maybe it's the 24-hour news cycle. Maybe it's the people. I think people have their consciousness as such, and the 24-hour news cycle. Needing to fill up that time.
24 minutes.
Right, exactly. Needing to fill up the time with whatever. It enters into people's consciousness and directly affects their perception and what to do.
And don't you think people are influenced by what they read, and it is almost like 24 minutes, 24 seconds, that may or may not be relevant to where we are in Central Virginia, don't you?
Absolutely. You have your your national markets, and you do have your micro markets, your markets that are locally. And that's not saying that what may happen in California doesn't on some way affect what happens in Charlottesville, because those people are buying something in Kansas people are buying something in Washington, and Washington, so it'll come down to us.
Yes.
But however, I will say that I've talked to colleagues up in our Madison area that we work, and there were definitely 2 years ago there was definitely a shift in the DC area. They had multiple offers. Culpeper is now seeing similar kind of thing 2 years later. Multiple offers, foreclosures are kind of off the table, an increase of activity. So I see it coming back, coming down into this area, which is encouraging, very encouraging.
Have you had to implement some new strategies for working with, let's just say, working with sellers, because there have been fewer sales the last few years?
Definitely. I think that buyers, for so many years, it's kind of funny. I remember attending a seminar one time and they talked about buyers as being, they were kind of like chopped liver, in that, you had X amount of properties to show you, and these are the properties to look at and choose one. I'm not saying you have to buy any particular one, but now we really have to massage the market in representing our buyers as buyer's agents. So when I'm working with a seller, I put myself in a buyer's consciousness in my recommendations to my seller. An example might be, I just put a couple on the market the last couple of days, is that if you're putting a condominium on the market, let's say, and there are condominium fees that are maybe twice of what townhome fees might look like, well, that is a monthly outlay of expenses by the buyer. So they have more choices. So if you're going to buy a condominium at, say, $250,000, if you buy a townhome that has half of the association fee is maybe half the amount, they could really buy something for $350 or $400. So that's also your competition. So it's really kind of massaging the market, seeing what all the variables might be, and seeing how it impacts a buyer making their decisions. And if you can get into that consciousness when you talk to the seller, and it might be taking them out to see properties, or hopefully some realtors have been really good at taking lots of really good photographs of their homes. You can show them online, like, this is what this will buy you.
And you use a lot of internet strategies.
I use a lot of internet strategy. I do a lot of social media. I'm on the internet all the time, working with the various, posting on different search engines or what have you. So I use a lot of internet marketing for my.
If you had one tip, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if you had one tip for buyers in this market right now, what would you say to buyers right now if you had the opportunity?
Well, one of the things that I would say is that a buyer, actually quoting Barbara Corcoran, I'm not going to take this as my own quote, but she really says, and it's so true, that typically a buyer, when the market's really going up, is when buyers, it kind of affirms their decision, get in there before they miss out, and they end up paying more for a property. It takes more courage today to buy something because you're maybe in some ways a bit of a lone wolf, but this is where you make your money. You know, if you're going to sell next year, you know, that's another scenario, but if you're going to sell in 3 and 4 and 5 years, who cares if the market may be a little bit less next year? You're still going to make your money.
Great tip, and thanks so much for joining us today, Cynthia. Really
My
appreciate it.
pleasure.
Thank you.